participate because they wanted to. So I think more businesses, more operations such as the School Board of Palm Beach County and others are going to find a way to get us out there. And if we can make it permanent, that would be great. But while we're working on it, I want to make sure that we can come up with some flexibility to allow people to participate. Thank you.
Mr. Ferguson.
Point of information first, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask a question to Board Member Brill regarding her comment. Did Ms. Solnett advise you as to what she thinks the appetite for getting the law changed would be in Tallahassee this upcoming session?
Good.
So she didn't really discuss that, but given the fact that it doesn't cost anything, I think it might be something that we can fix because this has been a constraint over the years. We know we have a calendar committee, and issues have always come up regarding holidays. So she does not weigh in on whether she thinks it's going to work or not work. What she's going to do is put together the ideas that we have, and then we can discuss them all together.
Has there been any attempt to modify the law of the last 3 years? I can't imagine that we're the first one to think of it in the state of Florida.
Not that I know of.
Well, that's a shame. Mr. Chair, question for the superintendent. Mr. Superintendent, can you remind me of the 6 paid days that we have? Discussed it with me about a month ago, but I'm coming off of vacation, so trying to get back.
Yeah, it's part of our calendar that's posted online. You know, we have, I think, Memorial Day, Labor Day, July 4th, Thanksgiving, Christmas Day. I may need some help there from Mr. Kubrick, or I can pull up the calendar.
Pulling it up. Hold on 1 second.
I just want to make sure that I'm not including a holiday maybe that when we're closed for a break that wouldn't count towards that. But
Well, I think it also flexes depending on what day of the week certain holidays fall on.
right.
So for the 6 paid holidays, it's Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving. It's used as winter break, but it's like Christmas, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and Memorial Day.
Thank you.
Okay, so I see why there's great difficulty in doing this, but respectfully, if we're giving the 4th of July off, which, I mean, until 3 years ago, that was what we thought of as Independence Day. For those of us who are descendants of the so-called black man, specifically those who were enslaved in this country, our Independence Day effectively is Juneteenth. So I can't see how we recognize those, what happened in 1776. I hope I'm correct. I'm sure my history teacher will wrap my knuckles, but in any event, yeah, I mean, that's not the full story. We as a country weren't fully independent until Juneteenth happened. So I think that we need to do what is necessary now even. So let's not even wait for legislative action because, I mean, we're smart, but it's not like we're the smartest people in the state of Florida. This could have been done 3 years ago if there truly was an appetite. So having said all that, I guess the question would, I mean, I know we're not going to make a ruling on this today and we're just discussing, but the question would be which of these days would need to be bumped. I mean, it's going to tip off somebody, but I think when we talk about being equitable and being respectful, Juneteenth definitely should be a day that persons have off as a paid holiday, not just, okay, you can stay home and I won't fire you for missing it. It should be paid. I was contacted by a lot of constituents, so respectfully, I wasn't engaged by teachers and things of that nature who were in summer school, but just the residents, they thought the optics were off, and I wholeheartedly agree with them. So I don't know whether we're talking about, maybe Labor Day. I would have trouble, and I know we're not going to take a motion, but we're discussing this. I would have great trouble with taking Memorial Day off the slate for paid holidays, but perhaps Labor Day might be one. I know we look like the redhead stepchild, but until we get that extra 7th day in Tallahassee, I think we have to do what we have to do, or we could just give the district a paid day on Juneteenth and dare somebody to tell us that we're wrong. I mean, people have shown over the last 3 or 4 years in particular that they're ultimately on the wrong side of history in that regard. So I think it's never a bad time to do what's right. And so, again, for the reasons that I've already mentioned, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chair, I definitely would like us to get this on the actual agenda sooner than later for us to be able to vote it up or vote it down. And I'm hoping that at least 4 of us will agree that this is something that we need to do as a matter of equity and just, I'll leave it as equity for now, but it's something that we need to do. Thank you.
Mrs. Andrews.
Mr. Ferguson, you know, I'm just as eager to get it on as you are, but I just know our process here with our committee. I know that the board does make the final decision. Certainly, I like the idea of trying to do something in Tallahassee, too. And I don't know what will happen in any of these pieces as to whether we can make it all happen the way we're talking about, paid and everything perfect for this coming Juneteenth. But I did get the commitment from the superintendent as I was participating in my communities that we're going to step up to the plate to kind of make something happen. I don't know what it's going to look like because I'd like it to look like what you're saying. But if not, I know we can do better than what we did this past year. And as people learn about Juneteenth, it's a federal holiday. You got the cities and all the other people really celebrating, wondering where we are as a school board. So I've been committed from the superintendent that we're going to step up to the plate to do whatever we have to do. But I know there's a lot of conversation with those days before we can just jump up in it. I know we do make the final decision, but we have to be very careful through that process.
Vice Chair Brill.
Thank you. And so I understand what you're saying, Mr. Ferguson, but I don't know that I have an appetite to bump one holiday over another. But what I would like to do is, since you brought up the question about how Ms. Solnit feels that it would be received, perhaps the superintendent can speak to Ron LaFace and get his feel for whether the legislature would be supportive of something like that, because I don't believe it's been discussed. I think that we could get support through the other entities in Florida. Certainly, if we can speak to some of the other board members that we know in other districts, and I think it's something that might be feasible.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ferguson, go ahead.
So I know that Superintendent Burke has advised me, and I'm sure he has advised all of you, that there are counties in Florida that are paying for that extra seventh day already. So I know there's reservation and apprehension throughout the state about essentially getting your knuckles wrapped or worse based on what's happening up in Tallahassee. But I think some things are worth kind of getting dusted up about. These people in Palm Beach County elected all of us, and many of them in many of your districts look just like me. And without their support, many of us wouldn't be here. And I just think it's time to do right by Palm Beach County. Really, just from a humanistic standpoint, it's something that we really need to do. So even if it technically doesn't meet the letter of the law, and I'm sure I have some opponents, saying, oh, the attorney is up here telling us that we need to deviate from the law. But again, we have precedent for it. There are certain counties that are already doing it, and it's something that we need to do. So I guess I'll be more direct. I would like us to at least, let's vote it up or vote it down, but show respect to these citizens who thought enough to contact all of us after what happened for, I guess, the third time now. Let's figure out what we want to do. Let's add this seventh paid day, and in the meantime, also reach out to Mr. LaFace and whoever else is lobbying for us in Tallahassee to see if we can get it to a vote in the House and to the Senate as well. I mean, we all know our representatives in Tallahassee as well. So let's motivate them as well to say, hey, this is something that we need to get done. This should be something that's not about being an R or D or an I. It's just about being right and respecting somebody or somebody as a race who is a foundational piece of this country. No matter how you feel about it, America is not what it is without black people. And so I think we need to recognize that. As far as that goes. So just to make sure that everybody's hearing me clearly, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chair, and my colleagues, I think that we really should try to work on this in the next meeting or two, vote it up or vote it down as far as making Juneteenth of 2024 a paid holiday. So if there are any year-long workers or 200-day workers, or whatever the case may be, or students in summer school, they get that day off just like July 4th, because you can't talk independence in the U.S. of A. without talking about Juneteenth. And I thank you for your indulgence.
General Consul, my understanding is if we violated the law and paid all the employees for not coming to work and the state came down on us, we'd have to figure out a way to get all those employees to come in or give back the paycheck that they got for that day. Can we violate the law and give employees 7 paid holidays when the state law says 6?
The truth of the matter is we don't know what the potential consequences will be. We do know that it would be a violation, right. But we don't know what the potential consequences will be. And that's something certainly we'd want to dive into and look into, and it's something that, we've been in talks about.
Mr. Superintendent, then Mrs. Whitfield.
Well, first, I appreciate the discussion. Seems like there's a lot of interest and support to try to find a way to make this work. I'm not going to bring a recommendation to the board that would put you in a position of breaking the law. We're all constitutional officers. To me, that's not really an option. But there's some things that I think make this maybe more possible. And that first, it's a holiday that falls outside of our school year. Our teachers by contract get 6 paid holidays. So that's why you hear 6 that fall within the school year. But let us see. What it really comes down to is really that the 12-month employees that are working year round, if we have the latitude to close our offices for a day. And I want to do a little research. We did, I know, on a previous superintendent, we expanded our Thanksgiving holiday to a week, and we rescheduled our school days around that. So I'm not certain that there's not a viable path to get to where we want to be. But I do need to do more research. And then to Ms. Andrews' point, if we hit a roadblock and we feel like we cannot do it under the current legislation, then what can we do to as a district to celebrate that holiday in earnest? And we've run into that with Veterans Day in the past, where we had to be open on Veterans Day, so we tried to ramp up the educational benefits of explaining to the kids Veterans Day. But I think I've heard a lot of direction from the board here, and I think you've given us what we need to go to work on this further.
Mrs. Whitfield.